So I've heard of the band Ghost, and I've seen images of them as well, the elaborate costumes and all that, but I don't know their music. So let's try it. When I decided I wanted to find a completely new band, or at least new for me, I naturally was looking for a group that didn't mind dipping their toes into, let's say, the stormy waters of history. And then I came across Ghost. Yes, I've heard of them, and yes, I've seen images of them, the costumes and the makeup and all that. I'm assuming their influences, or at least their visual influences, are the likes of Alice Cooper and Kiss. And then I stumbled upon the subject matter of one particular song of theirs, Elizabeth. Yes, aha! That was interesting. Yes, Elizabeth. So let me find the info about this. Apparently it was Ghost's debut single and is featured on the Opus Eponymous album that was released in 2010. Opus Eponymous. That's Latin, I think. Hang on, let me quickly check. Bear with me. Okay. Yes, it's Latin. It's Latin for self-titled work. If you had to name an album, either Opus Eponymous or self-titled work, which one would you go for? I think, the Latin sounds cooler, right? Okay, so back to the song anyway, Elizabeth. And it's written about the notorious Elizabeth Bathory, a Hungarian countess that lived somewhere in the late 16th century, early 17th century. And she would also become known, after she was alive, as Countess Dracula, no less. Now, actually, I recently did a deep dive video into the story of Elizabeth Bathory, or as in Hungarian, she's known as Erzsébet Bathory. If you're interested in this story, and you really want a lot of information about it, because I cover not just the story, but also the theories, because there are a number of theories. And get this, there's also the mystery about where her body is, because it disappeared. Yes. So I'm going to add it in the description below if you're interested to hear and see it. What I'll do, I'll grab a few snippets from that production and stick it in this reaction video, just to add a little bit of context, with the lyrics and all that good stuff. So hey, I'm excited. I'm going to listen to Ghost for the first time. All right. On. Poor. Ha. Blimey, I didn't expect that. You see the logo of Ghost and you see the imagery in the way they're all dressed up, but I really didn't expect that. I was expecting something ferocious and growly and confrontational and dark, even though this kind of had darkness to it, but in a very different way than I expected. I mean, the vocals are almost light. I mean, I wasn't actually taking any notice of the text, actually, because I was a little bit surprised. It kind of threw me. But there's real melody in there, isn't there? I genuinely didn't expect that. I mean, I'm surprised, but pleasantly surprised. And there's this, that part at the beginning. And then there was this keyboard it was like the Doors. I hope you don't mind, but I'm going to have to go back and listen to that section again because, first of all, I wasn't taking any notice of the text. I apologise. But like I said, it kind of threw me. I didn't expect that. So I'm going to go back and listen to it again. All right? Okay. That chugging guitar just started again after that chorus, which is at the beginning. But now I know what it reminds me of. I can imagine Gene Simmons playing that. That's almost 70s Kiss-like. Or am I hearing things differently? Yeah. And listening to that keyboard again, it's like I said, it was like the Doors, 60s kind of psychedelic, but that's really cool. I like that. That is so good. So let's go through the text. Under the moonlight of old Hungarian skies, buried in the blood-drenched earth, these barren lands of ice, she was an evil woman with an evil soul. He's doing this pitch change at the end of the thing, right? And piercing eyes, emotionless, a heart so black and cold. Oh yeah, this I noticed. He's not calling her Elizabeth or the Hungarian Erzsébet. He says Elizabeth in the chasm where was my soul? Forever young. That's interesting. Elizabeth. And then there's like a beautiful melody in this. The battery in the castle of your death. You're still alive, Elizabeth. So, like I said, I did a deep dive into the Bathory story. So I'm going to add a little bit of that now, so you can get a little bit of context, and then we'll come back here. Okay. Born in 1560 to one of the most powerful families in Hungary, Erzsébet Bathory was a well-educated young girl, fluent in Latin, Greek, German and Hungarian, she was guided in a way befitting of her noble bloodline. At the age of 11, such was the norm among noble families back then, she became engaged to 14-year-old Count Ferenc Nadorsti. The Nadorsti family had both wealth and influence. Ferenc was to become a notable military figure in Hungary, earning himself the nickname the Black Knight. And as a military man in the late 16th century, it's safe to assume that he would have been quite accustomed to the sight of brutality and blood. And what we consider horrific today was probably very normal for Ferenc. The influence of this cannot be underestimated. And in what can only be described as sick entertainment, Ferenc began to school his wife in the obscenities of human torture. One account states that in a game developed for Ajeba's pleasure, Ferenc had a servant girl restrained, lathered in honey, and left with insects swarming upon her convulsing body. Ferenc was normalizing the infliction of pure sadistic pain on others, and by all accounts, Ajeba was enjoying it. There you go. So let's get back to the music, because I'm really enjoying this. So we were going back to that. I can imagine Gene Simmons playing that. Eerie, right? Okay. Before I go into the next block of text, let's go through this first, where he says, her pact with Satan, her despisal of mankind, her acts of cruelty, and her lust for blood makes her one of us. I mean, suddenly the vocals are a little bit more sinister, right? He's not doing that that change, that high note. Now it's becoming a little bit more serious. Now, her acts of cruelty and her lust for blood, again, I will add some, for context, I will add some of that other production that I did. But this is interesting, makes her one of us. Now, what does that mean? With their imagery, they're creating this fantasy. And it's a bit like, you know, how Alice Cooper is kind of a larger-than-life character. And then, of course, you've got the characters of Kiss, right? So Ghosts have the lead singer is known as Papa Emeritus, and everybody else in the band is a nameless ghoul. So they've created this kind of fantasy world around their image and music and so forth. I suppose that's what makes her one of us. Maybe that's part of this whole fantasy theme. Maybe. I think. It is believed that further corruption came from Ajeba's Aunt Clara, who introduced her to a shadowy circle of people who apparently claimed to be witches, sorcerers, and the like. Right, let's get on with it again.
Our ancient countess, what refused your desires will, to bathe in pure fresh blood, she'd pass in virgin skin. The lights of earth
really nice melody, isn't it?
You're still alive, Elizabeth. Elizabeth, in the castle was my soul. Forever young, Elizabeth. Bathory, in the castle you're still alive, Elizabeth.
Cool. I really like that. And you've got, that block of text. I mean, the chorus is brilliant. It's really musical. Then you've got these changes in key. Okay, let's just go through the text. Our ancient countess was refused her desire's will. To bathe in pure fresh blood, she'd peasant virgins killed. Again, I will add some extra context to this. As had been the case for many years, it all began with discipline. A servant made a mistake. A Jeba struck her hard. Blood spilled. And in that moment, something awakened. They say she saw her reflection smeared in red and believed the blood made her skin more youthful. They say she smiled. They say she wanted more. Young girls began to disappear. Peasant girls brought to the castle under the promise of education and work. They were never seen again. Rumor spread like rot. They spoke of torture needles pushed under fingernails. Girls starved, burnt, and whipped until their flesh fell away. They spoke of screams in the night and blood running down stone walls. Some said she bathed in it. Others said she drank it. Rumor would describe a Jeba Bathory biting and burning flesh. Some of the attacks were of an intimate nature. But it wasn't only peasants who began to go missing. Then we've got the chorus. Elizabeth in the chasm where was my soul, forever young. Elizabeth, Bathory in the castle of your death. You're still alive. And it goes through, of course, with the chorus, and it finishes again. You're still alive, Elizabeth. I wonder if that line is referring to the mystery around her missing body. I wonder. And finally, which I guess is quite fitting for a woman who was given the name Countess Dracula, her body. It disappeared from the family crypt. The resting place unknown. Countess Dracula. That's kind of creepy, isn't it? I mean, the music is intriguing and mysterious and dark in a very different way than I expected. There's also a sinister element to it. But it's just that they've blended so many different things musically, and I really didn't expect that. Genuinely didn't expect that. Whoa. Really good track. I'm really impressed with that. And this was their first single, meaning there's plenty of tracks to listen to. And I'm sure it won't be the last one I listen to. Really impressed. Yeah.